All right, welcome to the season of fire. So we're going to go over all of the fire descendants this week, just to kind of recap what's available out there for what's coming. So the new bosses are going to be weak to fire, so let's talk about what's happening there. We're going to start off with Blair, of course. Ultimate Blair has come on the scene, and we've certainly seen a lot of changes with his kit. So we'll go over all those changes. We'll talk about a bossing build and a couple of mobbing builds that are going to be very appropriate for his kit, and kind of our thoughts on the different modules and where they sit in the game at the moment. So without further ado, let's jump on in. We'll start off with the bossing build. I know this is going to be a little bit different from what people were expecting, but we are going to be using the ATAMs to simply one-shot everything in the game here. So let's look at the modules and we'll start off with kind of a discussion of them, and then we will go from there. To start off with, we are using backdraft. This is a HP heal, increases weak point damage and firearm ATK instead of skill power. So essentially what this means is if we spam our second ability, it will bring HP heal into the equation, and then that will give us some recovery. So MP recovery amount per flame is there. So again, the larger that MP recovery, the greater than the damage that we're going to be able to do with this kit. So that is where we're going with it. We will show you, as you can see from the gameplay that we're showing now with backdraft, it hits hard with ATAMs. He can one-shot all the bosses, so that makes it very helpful. About the only ones that struggle a bit with it are the fire bosses for some reason. If you look at Pyromaniac, for instance, or if you look at Molten Fortress, then you will see a little bit of resistance there. You can two-shot them, but still it's a little bit more work. Otherwise, it's just a one-shot kill all the way to Gluttony. We have bosses that we can't solo, so those bosses are going to be a bit different, and this build won't be for those bosses simply because we're looking at a very glass cannon build. So if that one shot or two shots doesn't work, then we are really going to be stuffed because our health is at 0 and any damage that we take from the boss is going to instantly kill us. So again, this is just if you wanted to get some quick clears. It's not a group play build at all. For a group play build, you could still use backdraft, but I would suggest some major changes to the kit in order to be able to do that. Generally speaking, this isn't my group play descendant for bossing. I would use someone else. For now, let's talk about some of the other things in this particular kit. What you use here on this second one, midair maneuvering, is what I use. Obviously when you're talking about bossing, this probably isn't the best one, but I pretty much leave it on anyway because I don't do a lot of grappling to the weak points. But if you were, you probably want to use the one that gives you longer range, right? We are using conditional recharge when using a skill consumes max HP and recovers max shield. So what we're doing here is we're trying to get our HP down as much as we can because we are using walk a tightrope. Walk a tightrope is going to give us, when our health is below 50%, we're going to get skill power modifier plus 30%. Firearm explosive ATK plus 30%. So this is going to boost our firearm damage, and this is going to be the thing that allows us to one-shot the majority of the bosses there. Otherwise, we are looking at cooldown. We want focus on dimension, gives us a bit of cooldown there, and then focus on fire. Again, this is just so we can charge our ability quickly, so that we can get that bonus to the damage as quickly as possible. We are using shot focus. It's going to give us a firearm ATK with a bit of hit to power. We are using skill extension, which gives us a skill duration. Honestly, this isn't really an important one, I don't think, but it does give that bonus damage a little bit more time to be available to us. Nimble Fingers with a cooldown, just so we can use that ability more quickly. And then since we're losing our health, increased shield, just to give us a little bit more survivability. MP conversion for the cooldown as well. So a pretty straightforward build. Duration is the only thing we're really going into here, just to allow that ability to last a little bit longer. And then, obviously the walk a tightrope and then the shot focus. So that is really the build. I think you can see from the gameplay, this really hits hard, and certainly is a really good option for you. I'm not going to get into truly deadly cuisine. I think this is still a viable one, and I don't have a build for it at the moment, but I was using a build on this. I think this is still a decent kit, if you want to run around. I'm not going to cover it today because I've covered it in previous videos. And then Classic Chef, again, is another one that I think was a viable one. Certainly we've used it before, and you can see from the previous videos that we've posted on Blair. It's a strong build, you know. I think it's certainly there. But I think the next one that we're going to cover is more important for what we're talking about in today's game. So I'll leave it off for a second so you can get a good clean view of the mods that we're using on this boss build, and then from here we will go over and look at the other parts of this kit. Fellow-wise, I'd argue it really doesn't matter. The one thing that you do want to avoid here is using the other dog, because we don't want to get our health back by using the fellow that gives us our health. You know, that would be a problem. So the Hagios sheepdog is probably not the play for this particular build. And then looking over at inversion reinforcement, probably shift this around a bit. You know, I'm using when you land a critical hit, you reload faster. That really doesn't help us any at all. So honestly, I don't know, other than shifting this particular damage type around to the one that's going to make the most sense for the boss. Really not much going on there. And then here, in terms of some of these others, you could give yourself some additional boost to health. You can make it where you move a little bit faster. That could be a good play. Obviously, cutting machine is not going to help us very much here. So but again, it's just really kind of what you're comfortable with. In this particular case, airborne doesn't help us any. So movement speed or one of these other buffs might be a better choice for you there. And then as far as arcade tuning, you know, we are going heavy into the weapon damage here. That's our focus. We want to make sure that the weapon does as much damage as possible. So I focused heavily on that. Let's talk about the reactor and the external components for his bossing build. The burning singularity reactor is a good choice here. We're getting skill cooldown. Again, we could, depending on what it is we're trying to buff, you know, go with a dimension reactor. We're getting fire skill. That's going to be important if we're throwing our fourth ability, and you see people doing that. And ultimately, I don't see a whole lot of importance here other than cooldown on here. I think arguably you could probably just use any reactor with cooldown on it, and that would be helpful to your kit, so you could use your weapon ability there. As far as the component set is concerned, we are using the annihilation set here. We're using this to get skill duration, and then firearm ATK proportional to the ratio of max HP loss. All right, so essentially if we get below 50%, then we're getting that 26% buff, right? And that 26% buff is really going to help us with the weapons, and you can see that, you know, we're single shot and everything as a result of that. Otherwise, we're focusing on HP and MP, so MP recovery out of combat, MP recovery in combat, MP recovery modifier, defense, shield recovery, max shield. That defense roll, we could possibly go with another shield modifier there, but for now, I think we're in good shape here. Again, this is the play. Again, it makes it very glass cannon, so that's something to keep in mind. In terms of weapons, we are using the ATEMs. And I did go with a different kind of build for this. I'm using Blair build. I called it the Blair build here. So again, this is the build that we're using for ATEMs. I'll just leave it off here. Nothing special about it other than the fact that we're focusing on critical hit rate, critical hit damage. And then toxic, we could shift this around and use it with any other damage type. We would just need to swap out the enhancement and then the gun barrel for whatever particular type you want there. I found this to be very strong. I was able to kill all the bosses without changing this, so this is certainly would work. But if you wanted to, you know, min-max it a bit more, you could. But this build was working really well for what we were doing with Blair. So again, we're only taking that one weak point shot, so getting that weak point hit there is really good. Now I have seen some people using reloads and other things, and using weak point and these other, you know, other damage things here, like, you know, multi-hit kind of spec, but honestly, this Blair build was working just well enough for me, so I didn't see the need to go down that road. And really, that's it. So as far as the boss build is concerned, this is really all I'm doing. We'll go ahead and from here, and we'll talk about some of the mobbing builds. So first, let's talk about one of the new mods, Next Level Recipe. Next Level Recipe hits really hard. You can see from the gameplay we're rolling now, this is the best one, I think, for most comfortable, at least, for 400% content. It's able to consistently get through 400% content without dying. You can, you know, set a gun up to grapple, and you can just grapple all over the sky and just stay in the air and just drag your you know, first ability all over the map and kill everything on the map. If you want to, you can stay on the ground and run around and do the same thing. So basically, if you use that first ability, you know, that's going to allow you to lay that carpet of fire that you see while he's running, and that's going to, you know, just kill everything in sight. And then, you know, if you pop your second ability, it recovers those flame zones, right, so that you can get more MP and you can just keep running with it, right? So this is very helpful. As long as you keep those flame zones going out, then you're good. And then every now and then you can spam your third ability, and your third ability fans out more, so you kill more enemies with it. So you're just really decimating everything in that room. That's up close. Obviously, it doesn't have the range. If you want to go with the range, we'll talk about that in a moment. But as far as just mass casualties, this is the best build I think in the game, and certainly 400% content. It just wrecks in it. Right? You still have your fourth ability, your Deadly Cuisine. You can pop that every now and then and take out some bosses, or just put some damage down quick and get rid of all the enemies in a particular area in a much faster fashion. But using the first and third ability is what's the star of this particular build. Let's talk about what we did to make it work. So again, we're not worrying about cooldown as much because we're getting our abilities back pretty quickly. Fire Specialist then allows us to get a little bit more skill damage out of it. We are using Dimension Specialist as well. So again, with MP conversion and Nimble Fingers, we're getting enough cooldown. The key to being able to do that is multi-talented. These two skills are dimension skills, so as long as we're spamming these two skills, we're getting our cooldown, way down. It's minus 20%, and this is much better than the 6% bonuses that we would get from not having those. So this makes it really powerful and I think really comfortable to use. And I found that I was never really running out of the ability to pop a skill whenever I wanted to. So really strong from that point of view. Otherwise, we are focusing on critical hit damage. So we've got skill critical hit damage of 115% with skill concentration. We're using front lines to get some more skill critical hit damage. A little bit of crit hit rate there as well. Battle of Stamina to get our HP up along with giving us a bit more skill duration. It's just going to allow that flamethrower to last longer, to allow those flame zones that we put down to last longer. And then we're making that skill effect range at 92.3%, just helping us get the maximum amount of range that we can out of our abilities. So that Carpet of Fire is larger, that Fan of Flames is larger, and that is where we're going from there. If you look at the particular bonus there to duration, we're getting about 6.2 seconds out of the 4-second normal duration there, and the burn lasts even longer, up to 7.7 seconds. We're getting it on a cooldown at 9.7 seconds, so it lasts 6.2. We can turn around 3 seconds later and use the other one, but as long as we use the multi-talented, we get it down even further. So that just allows us to just spam it, right? We're always having it. Same thing is true here. Max radius is 250%. So range-wise, let's look at that. We've got 250% max expandable range. 3.5 would give us max expandable range at 8.75. So 8.75, we've got 9.1. So we've maxed out our range here. So that just makes it where that ability is going to have the greatest amount of range. And this is also true when we start to look at our fourth ability. Fourth ability is expandable out to 250%. So again, we've already got that. We've already talked about it. So certainly we're going to get explosive damage range up to up to the max, which is going to be, 12, 13, 15. So 15 meters. So we're a little bit over, but it doesn't matter. And then the same thing is true with duration. It's just extended greatly. So that flame zone is going to stay persistent for 23 seconds. That's a long time to give us that flame zone. So certainly these fireballs are tremendous, and we're gonna see a big blast of damage and then a continuous burn for quite a while, just killing whatever else remains. And our cooldown is not bad either, being able to pop that every 38, 40 seconds. That means every room you go to, you'll be able to use it. So this is a good, strong build, and certainly let's leave it off for a second so you can see the different mods that we're using, and then we will jump from here on into the next part of the build. So again, we'll start off with arcade tuning. Where the arcade tuning is concerned, we are using skills here, so we're leaning heavily into that. As far as the fellow is concerned, we can use the sheepdog here, keep getting our health back a little bit sooner. I find that to be the most comfortable use of. And then inversion reinforcement, again, we could go with movement speed here. That would be a better choice. And then otherwise, it's just a matter of what damage type you want and what weapon choices you're using. Now I am using the Malevolent, so I leave this on, but you could go with whatever makes you more comfortable here. No real big benefits there in this particular case. So let's talk about the reactor and components. To do that, I'm going to move the screen out of the way here for a second. So we are using the Burning Phase Reactor. This gives us fire and dimension skill. These are dimension skills, both of them that we're using, or all of them that we're using in this particular kit. Fire skill power boost ratio or dimension skill power boost ratio are good play. We could also go with duration or range in this particular case. And it could go with cooldown. So any of these things would make this a good reactor. I think you can go in whatever direction you want based on what you're really looking to enhance. In addition to that, we are going with the Annihilation set. This gives us additional skill duration. And then on top of that, we're going with the Volcanic Sensor. Now we could just go full volcanic if we wanted to use our weapons a bit more, particularly if we're using the handgun or hand cannon. Hand cannon is powerful in this particular game, particularly malevolent. So that is really a good play here. As far as what we're focusing on HP and MP. So MP recovery in combat, MP recovery out of combat, MP recovery modifier, defense. We could go with shield here. In addition to that, we've got shield recovery modifier and max shield. So these are really strong choices if you're looking for both the duration boost and the skill power boost. But you could go in a different direction. You could go with the new set, right? We've got the new fire set that we've got here, the firebrand set, and that would give us skill effect range and skill duration, so further boost there. Obviously we've already maxed out our range, but maybe we could go with, you know, a different mod setup if we went down that road. And then movement speed wise, we're going to get a boost there. So this is certainly a good set, and it gives us resistance to fire. I would say this is the play. I just don't have good rolls on it yet, so as soon as I have some good rolls, I may switch this off. So just keep that in mind as an option for you. If you've got this set, you know, in a place where you really like it, then this could be a really good play for you. As far as weapons are concerned, we are using Malevolent. All you can see from the gameplay, I didn't use it very much. I didn't use any weapons very much. I was really trying to showcase the skills. But if you pair this with the fire and go down that road, that works really well. You can also go with Truly Deadly Arson, although I haven't found this gun to be as strong as some of the others in this game at the moment. I think it's just probably because it's a beam rifle and just don't feel good to me at the moment, but maybe there's a little bit more buff needed there, or the ability needs to be tweaked a little bit. I'm not sure. But, you know, it's still a good choice. And obviously another good fire weapon is Enduring Legacy, so you could certainly use that. I think Enduring Legacy, you know, is a little bit beyond, below the power curve, but it's been our go-to weapon for so long. It's nice to see some other weapons rise. But certainly you can go down that road if you like. As far as mods are concerned on the Malevolent, I am using the Fire Nuke build that I put together. This is basically, you know, pretty straightforward build. I don't think there's anything particularly exciting about it other than the focus on heat, right? We're using fire enhancement, superheated gun barrel, heat incinerator, and heat circulation. This just makes it blow everything up, basically. So, you know, with heat incinerator, we're getting, when defeated an enemy inflicted with burn, inflicts burn on other enemies within 15 meters of the target. So as soon as we kill somebody, it just spreads everywhere. And then heat circulation, when inflicted with burn fire, ATK goes up by 89.6% for 5 seconds. Cooldown's 20 seconds. So this is just a total fire build for this. So not the one I would use with other descendants, but certainly works really well with him. And otherwise, I'll just show you quickly the builds on the other weapons. Enduring Legacy with fire, and then you can take a quick snapshot of that, and then we go over to the Truly Deadly Arson. All right. So that's all we've got for that build. Let's talk about some of the other mods that we have available. So Killer Recipe is the other new mod that we got. And to be honest with you, I have some mixed feelings about this. I mean, I think it's a good mod. I think certainly it's something different in his kit. It's nice to have a different way of playing the game, and this gives us a lot more range. So if you want to kill everything up close, if you're kind of running gun and like to get up in the middle of everything, really want to just, burn everything around you, then I think the other build, the Next Level Cuisine is a better choice. But if you want to be a little bit more of a distance shooter, then Killer Recipe is probably your kit, right? Because this allows us to change things quite a bit. So the first thing is it changes our first ability. And you can see from the gameplay that we're rolling here, what it does is allows our first ability, instead of laying down that carpet of fire, either continuously or in one spot or another, wherever you push your ability, what it does is it fires off these fireballs, right? And so what we're basically doing is we're getting spicy meatball, and spicy meatball is just firing these fireballs at these fire meatballs at everything, and those just really take out. They do a lot of damage, and you can see from the gameplay that we're rolling, any character any enemy will take a considerable amount of damage. It's really even good against the little mini bosses. So it's a strong ability, and certainly, from a distance makes it really nice. You don't have to get up close anymore. You can really play his play style a little bit further back, which is, arguably a good thing in certain situations. The other thing it does is gives us temperature checks, so we can basically recall those, and that gives us our MP back. So that's really helpful as well. It's the same as our other, ability, but instead of pulling the flame zones back, it's pulling back those meatballs that we threw out or anything else that we use using Chef's Touch. So the other Chef Touch ability is Deadly Feast. Deadly Feast is essentially a very unique ability in the game. You can see from the gameplay that we're rolling now that what it does is it targets all the enemies that you get, and then you just, fire away at them. And so it's not hitting the ability again. So you hit your fourth, and then you pull your trigger button, whatever that is, like your left mouse key if you're using keyboard, mouse, or, your trigger on your controller. So this is very different. I'm not really at the point where I like it a lot, but it is, it is usable, and it does do some damage. It doesn't feel like it does as much damage as its first ability, which is kind of weird. But it does do some damage, and it allows you to target the enemies that you want to hit, so you can choose who you want to take out. That's kind of helpful, I think. But again, what I find with this particular kit, and you can see from the gameplay we're rolling, it's just not as powerful as the next level cuisine build, particularly for 400% content. But it is different, and it gives you a way to play them differently, and I think difference is always a good thing. So having a little bit of variability is there. Let's talk about the rest of the build. So we're using Killer Recipe. Obviously, we're using Nimble Fingers, MP conversion to give us our cooldowns, right? Again, we get plenty of cooldown from the kit using multi-talented, so we can continue to use Dimension Specialist and Fire Specialist. We've got Skill Extension just to give us a bit more duration. You could go with range, although the range is fairly well maxed out. You can see from what we have here that we've got, our duration at 7.3 seconds for the burn. And this is all about the burn. How long does the burn last? If the enemy doesn't die instantly, then they're getting that extra burn. So as far as range is concerned, what we'd be looking for here is 5 meters. We've got a little bit over 5 meters, so we've got that 250%. We don't really need to spec into range anymore. So the duration is really probably the play, because that's going to allow that burn to last longer. We are using skill concentration to increase our critical hit damage. And then we're using front lines to give us additional critical hit damage and some critical hit rate, and then increased HP just to give us that extra health. We've got maximized range on here. This is how we're getting our range, and then we've got some duration as well. So this is the kit. I'll leave my mouse off there for a second so you can see everything. You could use mid-air maneuvering, you could use multi-maneuvering. There's any different long distance maneuvering. That doesn't really matter. You're just trying to get those extra 5 module capacity out of it. I think that's it for the mods. Let's dive on into the next section. Arcade tuning wise, again, we're using our skills. So we're focused on a skill tree there. As far as fellows are concerned, getting our health back is what we're doing. We're usually running these builds for 400% content or something similar. And then reinforcement wise, like I was continuing to use Malevolent, so that's why the evolutionary cutting mechanism is a good play there. But you could modify this based on the content that you're doing, and the damage type could be modified as well. As far as reactors, we're using the same reactor. We're still using Dimension Fire skills, so this is the play. We are using the Burning Phase reactor. This gives us Fire and Dimension skill. These are Dimension skills, both of them that we're using, or all of them that we're using in this particular kit. Fire skill power boost ratio or Dimension skill power boost ratio are a good play. We could also go with duration or range in this particular case. And it could go with cooldown. So any of these things would make this a good reactor. I think you can go in whatever direction you want based on what you're really looking to enhance. In addition to that, we are going with the Annihilation set. This gives us additional skill duration. And then on top of that, we're going with the Volcanic sensor. Now we could just go full volcanic if we wanted to use our weapons a bit more, particularly if we're using the handgun or hand cannon. Hand cannon is powerful in this particular game, particularly Malevolent. So that is really a good play here. As far as what we're focusing on HP and MP. So MP recovery in combat, MP recovery out of combat, MP recovery modifier, defense. We could go with shield here. In addition to that, we've got shield recovery modifier and max shield. So these are really strong choices if you're looking for both the duration boost and the skill power boost. But you could go in a different direction. You could go with the new set, right? We've got the new fire set that we've got here, the Firebrand set, and that would give us skill effect range and skill duration, so further boost there. Obviously, we've already maxed out our range, but maybe we could go with, you know, a different mod setup if we went down that road. And then movement speed wise, we're going to get a boost there. So this is certainly a good set, and it gives us resistance to fire. I would say this is the play. I just don't have good rolls on it yet. So as soon as I have some good rolls, I may switch this off. So just keep that in mind as an option for you. If you've got this set, you know, in a place where you really like it, then this could be a really good play for you. If you've made it this far, thank you for watching. We are not currently a monetized channel, so any likes, subscribes, and comments are greatly appreciated. If you'd like to support us further, you can go on in the Nexon site, because we are a Nexon creator, and you can support us there by using this creator code. This will support us greatly, so thank you again for that. If you'd like to support us even further, you could go down below, and it's one of the links below. You'll find the Humble Bundle link that will take you to some discounted games. That discount will be applied. We will get credit for the sale, but we don't affect the price of any of those games when you do that. Otherwise, thank you again for watching, and we will see you in the next one.